Hello and welcome to another episode of Who Knew in the Moment, the podcast. I'm your host, Phil Friedrich, and today I'm honored to have Johnni Dijulious with me. Johnni is a wrestling stud. He also started a business called No TMRW, which if you're watching this, you can see it behind him. If you're listening, go ahead and Google that. And then as a amazing hobby, and we'll get into this, the guy has amazing stunts, base jumping, parachuting, the whole likes of it. And something that you're going to hear in our conversation today, which I'm excited to highlight, is he likes to live with a mantra or the mindset of pronoia. And so he's going to bring up that. I did.
Oh my gosh.
He's going to bring up a word that maybe you've heard of, maybe you haven't. So Johnni, thanks for being on.
I'm so impressed right now. Oh, nice. Yeah, well, let's just jump into that real quick. Pronoia is like literally what I live by.
Do it. Give it the preface.
So funny. Holy shit. Yeah, so like I have a good friend who actually owns No TMRW with me. His name is Bryce Meredith. First of all, by the way, thank you for having me. I appreciate it. But yeah, I have a good friend named Bryce Meredith. He owns No TMRW with me. And basically, me and him always talk about how you never know the consequences of good fortune, but you never know like the good road, the opportunities that open up from misfortune, from bad fortune, right? And so many people will never see that, right? So maybe when you were looking up, times I've talked about pronoia, did you ever hear what I call the pothole theory?
I did, but go ahead and explain it. I like it, and I think it's a good premise.
So basically, to me, right, what it means is like, if you're going somewhere that you're super excited to be at, whether it's a concert or it's a flight you haven't been on vacation forever. Hey, I'm heading to Florida with the family, whatever. You're on your way. Maybe it's even something smaller, like I'm seeing all my old college buddies at a pregame. We're all in town, and I'm so excited to see. I haven't talked to them in years. I'm so excited, right? You're on your way. And on your way there, you hit a pothole and you get a flat tire. Now, I don't know about you. I'm not some like crazy mechanic. It's going to take me a good minute to change this tire, right? Fortunately, I can do it on my own, right? I can do it on my own. But does it take me like 20 minutes? And maybe that 20, 30-minute window of getting all the fucking junk out of your car because you don't clean your car. You got to get everything out. And you got to take out the fucking tire and you got to jack it up. And the fucking jack slams down and you put it on the wrong spot. And you got to redo it again. Boom. It takes like 30 minutes. You might miss that flight, right? Or that small little hole in the wall concert. Maybe their set is done. I don't know.
Yeah.
You get back in the car, 30 minutes later, you start driving. It's easy to say that was the most inconvenient part of your week. It's very easy to say that, right?
Yep.
While you're driving down the road, you see a car, accident. Maybe it's fatal. Maybe someone's super hurt. I don't know. And, you kind of look over and then you keep thinking about your own poor, miserable life and how you missed this concert, how you missed your buddies at the pregame and you missed this flight, whatever. It'd be really easy to be like, that accident was the worst part of my week. But in the grand scheme of things, it could be the best thing that happened to you. Or going to the concert was the best thing that never happened to you because you could have been in that accident. Now, obviously, that's an extreme example, right? It's an extreme example, but there's so many potholes in my life that if I did it, it's not like, you learn from failure, find a silver lining. It's deeper than that because it's stuff that we'll never know. Like what road did I never open up because I fucked up? And it doesn't mean, hey, you should be okay with fucking up and failure. That's not what I mean either, right? But what I mean is there's only one thing to look at. Why not look at the positive? You know what I mean? And it might be delusional optimism, but I'd rather live in delusional optimism than live in all these opportunities that I missed in my life. You know what I mean? I'd rather live this direction. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I love it. Well, so there's an old proverb. I don't know if you've heard this or not, but basically, a gentleman gets a horse.
The horse.
Yeah, the horse. Yeah,
I knew you were going to say that.
All right, perfect.
He knows
it. Good.
Love that. Yeah, love that. I talk about like, so I like that. It's called the story of maybe, right?
Yeah.
So I love that. And I like attribute to my own life too. Just to kind of like, I know I'm moving fast through this, but I wrestled at Ohio State and out of college, I was a really high level recruit. And I don't want to say I had a bad college career because I had a good college career. We won the Nationals at Ohio State. Yeah. Individually, though, I was ranked second in the country at times. I was seeded fourth at the NCAAs, and I myself did not win NCAAs, which I thought I could. I thought that I had the skills and the talent to do that, right? Yeah. So looking at it, oh man, I failed. right? Like looking at it from just the naked eye. But when you really think about it, what road and opportunities did that set up? And for me, if I would have achieved my dreams, quote unquote, right?
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of things I wouldn't learn. There's a lot of things I would lack. And there's a lot of directions I wouldn't have gone down after, like, it's snowballed into so many different like avenues of where my life could go. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, so I want to kick off, but I want to rewind because I think your high school career is probably the catalyst in all of this, right? So freshman year, you come in, you're a stud muffin, you're having a great career. You get to the state championship though, and we fall we fall one match. Well, we're in the match, but we fall one win short of that ultimate goal of winning the state championship.
Right.
However, because of that, you say, well, I was a little bit motivated for the next 3 years, and the next 3 years worked a little differently. So talk a little bit about, that freshman year, the frustration of not winning, but then that being a launching pad for the next 3.
So I'm not sure how much you looked into, but I'll get into this a little bit. Or maybe you might be hesitant asking me, which totally you're allowed to. It's actually my sophomore year that's really interesting. We'll get into that in a second. But my freshman year, I actually lost my best friend in the state finals, right? We went to the same 5-year-old little itty bitty wrestling camp or wrestling practice together. We were best friends, drill partners all through our junior high. Then we wrestled in the state finals, and he beats me in overtime, right?
Yeah.
So we're an overtime match away from being a 4-time state champ. And my whole goal, my whole life was to be a 4-time state champ.
Yeah.
So again, outside looking in, it's like, damn, he didn't get his 4th. He could have been a 4-timer. Yeah. But when you're in it, like when you're actually in that, it's like, okay, what did I learn? And it sounds so cheesy. It sounds like I appreciate participation trophies, and I don't. Right? It's not what I want. But you have to explain it in a way at first to like understand, like, yeah, growth is important, and understanding like nuance of sport is important. And when you lose, if I just won all the time, what would happen when I went to college and I never learned how to battle through a loss, battle through heartbreak, battle through someone in close proximity to my life, beating me and whatnot. There's so many things that happen. So I like to attribute wrestling to, in my opinion, this is bias, right? Football is great. Basketball is great. Baseball is great. For me, and volleyball, shout out Julianne. For me, wrestling is the greatest simulator for real life struggle, right? In my opinion. And here's why. Real life suffering is going to happen. And a lot of people try to avoid suffering as much as they can. They try to say, oh, if I go down this path of least resistance, it will be my best opportunity for happiness. And that's not always true. Yeah. It's not always true, right? Like the path of least resistance at the gym would be the lightest weight. And we all know you can't get stronger with the lightest weight. It's the best metaphor you could probably think of, right?
Yeah.
So I like to think, and I'm cherry picking from a coach of mine.
Yeah.
I like to think of wrestling as like, a glass of water, right? And if there's dust in the water, what happens if you let it sit for a really long time? The dust settles at the bottom, the water's on top. I take a sip of the water, I get clean water, I don't taste the dust. Well, that's a life of no suffering. Nobody's ever passed away. You've never dealt with injuries. You haven't dealt with a breakup, someone cheating on you, no adversity, right?
Yeah.
Sudden, years later, you take a sip, you get down to the dust, what do? Spit it out. I'm not ready for that. Right? What wrestling does is it shakes your water every single day. Yeah. Boom, I take a sip. Ooh, that was dusty. And the feedback loop you get is, hey, you're not strong enough. Hey, you're not fast enough. Hey, you're not tough enough. Hey, you're not good here yet. Hey, you are good here yet. And there's positive feedback as well. There's so much feedback that you get from shaking your water every single day and being able to like learn and put yourself in simulated suffering. Yeah. When I was a sophomore, right after I won my second state title, my mom passed away.
Yeah.
Probably saw that, right?
Yeah.
My mom passed away when I was a sophomore. And it's really easy when bad things happen to say why. I think it's the easiest thing. And it's not wrong. People do say why, right?
Yep.
Why me? Why God? Why? Why does bad things happen to good people? It's really easy to say why. Well,
Absolutely.
let's take that into sport. I'm in the first minute of my wrestling match. I get thrown on my back. If I go, why God? Why did I do that stupid move? I'm down 5-0. Yeah. I probably don't have a great opportunity of getting back in this match, right? Why is a past tense looking word? I'm in the moment, in the middle of a fight, thinking about a minute ago. It's probably not the best thing I could do.
Yeah.
But if I change that from why to what, okay, what do I have to do to get back in this match?
Yeah.
What do I have to do to get out on bottom, to score points, to get to my leg attacks, to whatever it is? It's a more future pushing word, or at least present. It's more present, but it's like, what do I have to do right now, right?
Yep.
So when you attribute that to like losing somebody, of course you're going to mourn them. And there's a good mourning period. But what wrestling taught me is, you know what? Why did my mom have to pass away? Or, hey, what do I have to do to be there for my brothers? Because what do I have to do to be a good son to my dad? Because he just lost his wife, right? So many things that come from that, where sports doesn't make things like losing your mom easier, but it does make it manageable, in my opinion. And if you've never put yourself in there, it's really hard to navigate when suffering happens, because guess what's inevitable? We're going to suffer. It's not a life of misery, right? Embrace the suck a little bit. It's not a life of misery. It's just there are people that you're going to lose. Yeah. And there are times you're going to get injured and miss out on opportunities. And there are times you're going to deal with financial struggle. It is just, you know what I mean? So that's what I'm sorry about my filibuster a little bit, but
no, I love it.
My high school career a little bit. So it helped me a lot.
Yeah, well, and I think a couple of things that you highlighted is, one, it's not that bad things aren't going to happen. It's being prepared to deal with them and say, all right, next up mentality when they do happen, right?
For sure.
And I think, we're talking about in the scope of sports, and, I think sports are a great opportunity to learn life lessons before you have to deal with real life lessons. But for you, it was a life lesson right away. So, talk about just, losing a parent, but then, I think about it this way. You never want to bury something because it will rear its head out at some point if you don't deal with it.
100%.
However, there is something to be said about embracing it, dealing with it, and then also saying, but my life has to continue on, right? And I still have to continue to progress. So talk a little bit about, that period of time for you, embracing it, being there for family, dealing with it. And then at the same token saying, all right, I still have life to live though.
So I remember I was leaving my mom's funeral, right? Sophomore year. So I just won my first state title. Yeah. And I know you asked about my high school career. For listeners, I ended up winning sophomore, junior, senior year. So I was a 3-time state champ, very fortunate. But sophomore year was she saw me win my first. And then she passed away like 10 days, 13 days later. I forget the exact time frame after. It was March 21st, but like 10 days after my first state title, right? And I remember leaving the funeral on like the 23rd or 24th, a couple days later, and I get pulled over from police. Now it wasn't like, I wasn't flying down the road or anything like that. But I got pulled over rolling a stop sign, right? Cop pulls me over, walks over to me, and he goes, you just rolled the stop sign. And I wasn't like hysterical. He didn't know I just lost somebody. I'm not using it as the victim card, but I'm not, totally like upbeat, charismatic at this point, right?
Right.
So I say, my bad. I just was, trying to get home, right? I said, whatever. So in my head, what am I thinking? I'm thinking, I just lost my mom. Obviously, I'm not going to get a ticket right now. Life owes me a break. Life does. It owes me a break.
Yeah.
He comes back, he gives me a ticket, he says, have a good day, and leaves. Right. So kind of like that right there was like, no matter what you're going through and how bad you want a break, life will continue. And, it sucks to say that, like, someone listening may have lost their grandma, may have lost their grandma. And it's really easy to be like, I deserve a break, not a break like I get to sit down, but I deserve like, I want to say handout, because then it all of a sudden gets taken the wrong way, because words like that,
right,
in a political sense and whatnot have kind of like dragged out as weapons, but we expect like, oh, so many bad things happen to me, I'm due. And you're not. You're not due. So the only thing you can do is not move on, but you have to keep living, right? Like life doesn't give a fuck that you just lost your mom, right? Life does not. If you roll a stop sign, you'll get a ticket. It's just how it is, right? So big thing that I learned just with moving on, right, is if there's only one thing to look at, if there is only a silver lining to look at, I'd rather have my mom than the silver lining. But if all I can grasp is the silver lining, then I might as well. So for me, I'm going to ask you a question. What's your favorite movie? And it doesn't have to be your actual favorite, but a movie that probably we've both seen that you love.
Gladiator or Blow with Johnny Depp. Those two.
Both. But I'm so happy you said both. Those are phenomenal movies. I made my girlfriend watch Gladiator. She fell asleep. I got so mad.
What?
I know. I know. And like I'm trying to show her Casino, and she's falling asleep. It's
we
so
need to teach her a thing about movies here.
right. Gladiator. What's the first scene you think of off the top of your head? Could be anything.
Are you not entertained?
Of course, right?
Right. Yeah. Right in the
You
Coliseum.
could have thought of anything. You
Yep.
could have thought of, the last battle at the end. You could have thought of the first battle of the war, at the beginning. You could have thought of when Marcus Aurelius dies. You could have thought of anything. Why did you not think of the end credits? Because it'd be silly, right? Yeah. So when someone accidentally says a your mom joke to me, or someone says, hey, what do your parents do? Plural S at the end. When someone says anything that makes me think of my mom, I like to think that she wouldn't want me just to think of the end credits of her movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
She's she was a very upbeat person, very charismatic. So if that's the case, why wouldn't I think about, we were 6 years old and we went to Disney with my mom, or when I was 12 and we played hooky from school and Like, I like to think of something an hour into her movie, an hour and a half into her movie, and credits. Now, easier said than done. It's really hard not to miss somebody and associate miss with sadness, right?
Yeah.
It just, but I know that people that we lose don't want us to think name sad. They don't want that. I don't want that. You want name. Damn, that motherfucker was wild. Right? You want that, right?
Absolutely.
So that's how I like to view it. Yeah. I like to think I learned that from wrestling. I haven't really tied how wrestling got me to the movie metaphor yet. Yeah. But definitely that's how I've kind of gotten through, getting over and being able to talk about my mom without struggling, right? And of course there's struggle, but I talk about my mom pretty freely, and it's leaning into it more than trying to avoid talking about it, right? Like, I got this one friend, we can't bring up his ex around him, and his ex was like, it's been years, because he struggles talking about it. But now it's like that's not a good thing, right?
It's not serving you, man.
It's not serving, exactly. And it's such a good word. It's not serving you. In wrestling, in any sport, really. Would you play sports in high school or college?
I did. I played basketball in high school and college.
Sweet.
So,
okay. So it's really easy in sports, as you know, to, oh man, I hope I don't get tired. It's really easy to do that. Hey, I hope I don't get tired. But what's probably inevitable in the middle of a wrestling match or basketball game?
Some point you'll feel it.
Yeah, I'm gonna get tired. So for me, if I know that the inevitable thing is I'm gonna get tired, instead of trying all of my might not to get tired and then inevitably getting tired and being like shocked, I expect it. I not just expect it, I go there on purpose. I'm gonna get myself exhausted and then score points. I'm gonna go there. Let's go to I'm gonna go to the dark place, and I'm gonna take you fucking with me, right? And then so now I'm not like expecting disappointment in real life, or expecting failure in real life, or expecting misery in real life. But when you lean into it, right? For a better metaphor, when you lean into it a little bit, it almost becomes more manageable to navigate. You know what I mean? So that's kind of like where I'm kind of trying to get with this.
I love it. No, I love it, man. And you're spot on. And so, you have this great and illustrious high school career. Once again, 3-time state championship with darn near the 4th. And when you're that good, you just get opportunities. And I'm sure there's a lot of schools that are saying, hey, Johnny, we want you to come play or wrestle for us. But you pick the Ohio State University. Gotta say it that way, right? I mean, we don't even have any other option. And you go there and, talk a little bit about, making the jump from being, the best in
high school,
the state on your team. And now it's not that you're not the best, but there's a lot of other people that would be saying the exact same thing. Like, hey, I'm a 2- and 3-time state champ as well.
Everybody's a 3-time state champ in college. Yeah, for sure.
So, talk about that for you, and just getting, thrown in that mix of, all right, well, it's time to compete, baby. Like, I'm here.
I realized, like, once I got into college, I wasn't getting a single takedown at practice for like the first month and a half against low-level guys that placed at state a couple times, but they've been in a college room for several years, right? Like, and it's a reality shock right away. But there's this. You ever heard of a BCA curve? Okay, so I learned this after college, but it's good to. This isn't really what I was thinking in the moment, but I went through this, without realizing it, right? So BCA curve is basically, you have uninformed optimism when you're looking at something like skydiving or UFC. Everybody has this in the UFC, right? we who have never been in a fight, watch the UFC, and we say, just get up, just hit him in the face. Dude, what the fuck? He's not aggressive enough. I'd be so much more aggressive, bro. I would, right? Or you watch like Giannis and Jimmy Butler last night. And it's so easy to be like, dude, just do this, right? Just do it. We have uninformed optimism, and then all of a sudden we get put into discomfort, and we have informed pessimism, right? So it goes from an uninformed optimism to, oh, this is harder than I thought. Well, no shit, motherfucker, right?
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not as easy as just looking at it from afar because there's no discomfort from afar. It's safe to say it from from afar away. And most people change hobbies there or change sports, whatever it is. But if you stay there long enough, obviously you have the best of both worlds. You have, oh, you know what? I can do this, right? But that might take years. I have no idea, right?
Yep.
So the BCA curve is if you're a B level, and I'll use a podcaster, an interviewer, right?
Yeah.
You're a B. Let's pretend you're a B level podcaster, right?
Yeah.
In order to become A level, it's not like an upward trajectory. Like, ooh, I learned new moves today, got a little better. Did more shots today, got a little better. Usually you go down and then up. Usually. BCA curve. So if you can only go right in basketball, you can only go right, but you're fucking nasty at it, and you're on your high school team, and you just taught like everybody. You just boom. I'm just lightning everybody. I beat to my right. I can break out to the right every time. I'm super good there, and you beat everybody. All of a sudden, coach comes out to your practice and goes, "Hey, you're not allowed to go right today."
Yeah.
Now you went from a B level basketball player down to C. Now you're at C because you're vulnerable. Right. And pride is going to tell you, go back to the right. Yeah. It's going to have you go back to B. Why? Because it's safe. Because you want to win. Because you want to win.
Absolutely.
Right? Now, somebody who usually doesn't defend you is defending you. Somebody who usually doesn't beat you at practice is beating you. Humiliation is setting in. All the voices are setting in. But if you stay there long enough, you get pretty good at going left. Now you have the option to go both right and left. And you have gotten a little better. BCA, then you do it again, BCA, then you do it again, BCA, and you continue to add, right? So that's how I like to think of it, right? And when I was wrestling at Ohio State, just to circle back, I had that as a freshman, I had to develop. And and that jump is super fucking hard to say.
Right. Yeah.
And it's so easy for me to talk about it from far away right now.
Absolutely.
Like having to go back through it, like the detachment happens so fast. It's fucking hard. It's so hard. And every voice is talking to you in your head like, yo, dude, I don't know about this. You know what I mean? It just does.
Well, and I think an interesting thing can happen too. You start thinking, gosh, should I transfer? Am I even good enough to be here? And
100%.
And something that I think is interesting, I'll tie it into, what you talked about before, sometimes just making a choice, even if it is changing course, isn't the wrong thing. And I had a gentleman named Cody Law on, and he went to Penn State and wrestled, and then he ended up switching. And
UPJ.
Yeah, to UPJ, and now he
fights in Bellator. That's one of my good buddies.
Correct. Okay, yeah. So I had him on the podcast a while back, and he's like, I got there and just it wasn't going like I thought it was, and now I'm going down, in competitive rank, and I'm kind of sitting here like, dang, dude, like was I not good enough to compete at that level? And he obviously has had a great career. He's transitioned into, a professional, UFC fighting career. Yeah. But you just sit there and you say, gosh, it is a tough transition, even for someone that's good, but you have the mental head trash of, am I good enough? Should I have gone to this level? And so
if you've never dealt with that in your life, it's hard to deal with it for the first time.
Absolutely. Well, and so something that I thought was super interesting is multiple of your coaches, in different interviews had just talked about, and this is no knock to you, I'm sure they've said it to you, but they said Johnny wasn't always the strongest guy. He wasn't the quickest guy, but he was probably the mentally toughest guy. And
it's a common thing I've always heard about myself, for sure. And I embrace it. It's true. I'm not like some 6-foot LeBron James looking like freak of athlete, right? I worked hard,
Right. Yeah.
Sure.
Well, and so one story that I found that was super intriguing to me, and I couldn't tell if it was maybe they were recruiting you and they saw in high school or it was in college, but your thing was you always got on the mat right after the match ended before you, and you towed the line. And there was a time where they had an award celebration. You sat out there for, they said, about 30 minutes.
How did you see this?
Dude, I do research, brother. I told you.
How did you see this? Holy God, dude, I was out there for like 20 minutes. I was sophomore year of high school.
Okay, yeah. So they said you're out there for 20, 30 minutes, but the competitor was like, well, gosh, I can't not go out there. But he goes out there for maybe 2 or 3 minutes and leaves and does not stick it. So you already got point number one on him, right? You got the
Right. He
mental
tried to kind of
victory.
stare me down. I cannot believe you knew that. That's funny. Yeah, he we're actually good buddies now, me and that wrestler, but he ended up wrestling Ohio State too.
Okay.
But yeah, he like came right up to the line and just like, so I would swear on the line, I would just be like, let's fucking go. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And it was almost like a superstition thing. I just want to be the first one on the line, whatever. Which superstitions are a mental weakness in and of itself. Well, we can talk about that another time. Drew, the wrestler, comes up and puts his foot on the line and kind of stares me down back.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, let's fucking do this, right? And after like 2 or 3 minutes, he went back to his corner because there was such a long award ceremony process where I did feel like, okay, that's one for me, right?
Yeah.
Like it was one of those, which that's so funny, that. Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Well, so talking a little bit about, the mental side of things, was that something that was instilled in you by coaches? Was that something you kind of personally sought out, or where did, the mental development come from to, have that mental fortitude especially in wrestling, right?
Yeah.
So important.
Everything that I feel like we think that we manifested, right? We probably did hear from our dad and mom when we were kids. You know what I mean? Like,
Facts. Yeah.
so funny. Like, I'm sure my dad at some point said, like, hey, what's something generic? Hey, lying is bad, Johnny. You shouldn't lie. Now I'm 30 years old, and I'm like, you know what? Lying's wrong. Wow,
Yeah.
I'm so smart. And I'm so smart, right? Like we all do, right?
Absolutely.
So there's so many like mental things that I like to think that just through caring and through effort that I think through on my own, like, oh, you know what, that does make sense. But I'm sure I learned it in cherry pick. Now I do steal a lot, right?
Yeah.
Hey, this coach said this, this podcast said that.
Yeah.
This athlete, he talks about this, and I ask questions, and the root of being a genius at something is to be curious. So I am super curious about things, and I try my hardest to indulge in a lot of learning. But yeah, I think a lot of it is I gotta give my dad props, man. He helped a lot growing up.
Yeah.
But yeah, college too. I learned the most
Yeah.
I ever learned about the mindset side of
Yeah.
just the athletics in college. I
Yeah.
definitely did. Did you watch Giannis' interview?
Last night? Yeah. Yeah, that was so good.
Okay.
Do you
Okay,
call it a
agreed.
failure? No.
And bro, I'm in a group chat today with people who, and this, I feel bad saying this. I fucking flame people on Twitter with this, but I'm not this mean, right?
Yeah.
In real life. If you only played sports in high school, you could have a great mind. You could.
Yeah.
But there's going to be experience things that you just don't have the perspective of, and that's okay, right? Mm-hmm. It's not a shot. It doesn't mean you don't know more about basketball than me. It doesn't mean, right. However, there are some things at a certain level that are just experience. The Goodwill Hunting on the bench scene. You know what I mean? Like, hey, you've never looked up at the Sistine Chapel before.
Right.
You can tell me about Michelangelo in a book, but you don't know what it smells like in that room, right?
Yeah.
Which is okay, right? It's not me knocking high school athletes that only played in high school. That's not what I'm doing. So when I had this group chat today, they're like, no, it was a failure. No, it was a failure. No, it was a failure. And they just don't understand. They view that as participation trophy type talk, and it's not.
No.
Giannis cares about fucking winning.
Right.
He does. He cares about winning so much that he understands I don't have to put all my eggs into winning. I need to put into growth. And when you talk about growth, they call it cheesy. They call it corny. No, man, winners win. Vince Lombardi quotes, man. And that might work for certain athletes, but there's a lot of athletes that it causes paralysis to.
Absolutely.
And, it's so. I looked at Giannis's interview as a red light.
Yeah.
The road of his journey, of his career, is long.
Mm-hmm.
Losing a game, missing shot, losing a series is just a red light. A red light is not failure. It's a red light. It's a speed bump. That's all it is. Right? It's a red light. And you know what? Next year when it comes back, he might meet another red light. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he green lights through the whole fucking season. I have no idea. But the point is, people look at it as a way to encompass everything. It's not an end result, right? Like it's just part of his growth. Process is such an overused term. I hate using it.
Right.
truth to it, right? There's so much truth.
Absolutely.
So,
Yeah. I love it.
Giannis, I'm not even a basketball player. That's you, you know?
Hey, I love it. You're spot on. Now, another thing that a couple of your coaches talked about was that, you think Division I athletics, you think good at it, and oftentimes there's a partying element that comes with that. And coaches said, Johnny didn't really drink. He was, around the
I've
friends,
never
and he was
tried
a
alcohol,
good dude.
actually.
So talk a little
Yeah.
bit about that. I mean, I don't know if that's something that parents instilled in you, if that was just a, hey, I don't want to do that, or family history of it, but talk a little bit about that.
I actually my dad was like, I get so into like psychology stuff, like reactance theory and whatnot. Like, hey, if I demand this, usually the opposite happens. My dad was super like liberal about things growing up, not politically liberal. Like, hey, if you do go out, just tell me. Hey, don't drink and drive if you choose to drink.
Yeah.
And it was like such a no really curfew. And obviously that doesn't work for all kids.
Right.
But for me, because it was so like, hey, I could tell my dad the truth. I don't have to lie. Like, I don't have the fear of lying. I just never did. Right. My mom drank and it didn't lead to her passing away, but it definitely turned me away from it after the fact, like when she passed away, where at that point I was 16 and I said, you know what? I've never tried alcohol before. My dad wouldn't really give a fuck if I did, but I just don't need to. There is no like, ooh, what's on the other side of this wall that my dad won't let me see? Like, there was none of that. Right. So I never did when I was 16. So I chose not to. All of a sudden I got into college. Everybody was drinking, but I had gone that long without it.
Yeah.
And I like to blame wrestling. Like, ooh, I was so disciplined, but it was deeper than that. It was.
Yeah.
It was more like, oh, you have this character at our friends' houses of being the funnest one who doesn't drink. And I liked that.
Yeah.
So I kind of ran with it. Now I'm 30 and I've never smoked, never drank. I did chew one time in high school. I puked.
Yeah, of course.
Right. Yeah.
So one thing that I want to highlight there, once again, I have not known you in that aspect, but I think, so many people use, drugs, alcohol as coping mechanisms for things that they don't want to mentally deal with. Right.
But sadly, it's a mask,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I think, obviously we spent a lot of time talking about being mentally developed, and I'm sure there's an element of, your ability to face tough problems and deal with them instead of, I just got to hide it and I have to,
Right.
distract myself with something else.
There might be other avenues I do that. I might have blind spots. And like, while you were talking, I don't want to come off as people listening to, hey, I'm better than people because I don't drink. I'm not.
Absolutely.
By any means. Like, if anything, I'd be fucking worse. Wait till you hear about the base jumping later, right? Like, if I did drink, I would be way, way worse, right? I do like to think in certain areas I am very self-aware that I would be worse, right? Which I think is a healthy thing. So definitely want to get that out there. There are ways, I'm sure, in stress and anxiety, like times I do distract myself that I don't realize I do right now. But, right now, talking me and you, the healthy thing is to lean into it and attack it head on and indulge in the feelings. If you're going to cry, fucking cry, right? If you're going to be pissed off, hey, be pissed off. Doesn't mean you have to, snap and punch the wall, but you should investigate why those things are happening. It is a healthy thing. You know what I mean? So, losing my mom, it's not something that, okay, if I drink, I'll forget about it and not deal with it. It's something that, hey, I lost my mom. Let's lean this way into it. And see what's going on so it doesn't affect me in 10 years,
Absolutely. I love it. So you win the national championship in college, as a team. I mean, it has to be one of the, pinnacles of success.
On the day my mom died. How crazy
No kidding.
Swear. That's crazy, right?
March 21st is also my birthday. So, that's kind of why when you said that, I was like, dude, that's wild. But yeah.
Holy shit. I hate your birthday.
Yeah. I don't blame you one bit. I don't blame you one bit, brother.
I'm kidding.
2024, we'll be together. We'll do something fun for it.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, man. No. So you have success. Once again, you've built up a great high school resume, a great college resume. And so pretty natural that you'd want to get into a coaching realm and then also, run some clinics. So,
I continued competing after college actually for 3-4 years.
Oh, neat. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So that's one of my potholes actually, because I didn't have the success that I thought I could have in college. I was like, you know what? I got some, some fight in me still. I want to put my best product out there. I felt like it had yet to be seen. So I wrestled internationally, wrestled, Olympic regional training centers, training at full time around the country. I was trying to make Team USA. So I wrestled several US Opens, Olympic trials, qualifiers, and whatnot. After 2020, COVID, that's when I stopped wrestling, and I was coaching at Harvard at the time. And now, now I'm here.
So one of your clinics that you're working and putting on sends you out to Colorado, and you're out in Colorado and you guys get a flat tire, and all of a sudden, I tried to research, brother. And,
no, it wasn't a flat tire. It was you're talking about Bryce, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It was I think it was the alternator.
Okay.
It was something with the battery.
Got it.
But yeah, we break down.
Yeah, so you break down and you're like, well, we don't know a ton of people around here, but you had seen on either a My Story or something.
Well, the wrestling world is small. So I called my friend Bryce and, hey, not my friend at the time, but I was like, hey, you went to Wyoming. I know Cheyenne's only like an hour from Denver. We don't know anybody out here. Fortunately, now in the whole country, I've been to every single state at minimum 10 times, besides Alaska. Fucking haven't been to Alaska. It makes me mad. But every single state, minimum 10 times, where I have a good little network of homies I can hit up. Like, hey, dude, I'm in this city. Hey, I'm in this city. But at the time, it was 2016. I was fresh out of college. I didn't have anybody to call.
Yeah.
So I called Bryce Meredith. I'm like, hey, I need you to come like jump our car or something, or just pick us up. I don't know. Right. So he drives out and he jumps our car, and he goes, do you guys want to go cliff jumping? And we're like, yeah. He brings us cliff jumping, and that snowballed into me and Bryce becoming really good friends, like really, really good friends. He partoes on tomorrow with me, right?
Yes, yeah.
So we've done stuff all over the world together. We've ran with the bulls in Spain. We've done some crazy stuff. There's actually a good. Did you ever hear the Iceland story with me and Bryce?
Is that where you get a little delayed and decide to go check it out, or no?
Theteradas. Do you remember that term?
Yeah, when you're leaving with the person, but tell it. You tell it.
Okay, so basically, long story short, me and Bryce were in. This is pronoia to a T, right? Yeah. Me and Bryce were in Iceland. We sneak into the Blue Lagoon because it was like a 10-hour wait, and because we snuck in, we got banned for life, right? Yeah. And what we didn't realize at the time was the Blue Lagoon was kind of a man-made spring. Everybody looks at it on Instagram, on Google, and it looks like a real spring, but it's like a regular man-made bottom, and spring water is pumped into it. So it's kind of like a letdown, right?
Right, yeah.
We're on these forums, on these back pages, this and that, looking up like real springs in Iceland that we could be like in the wild. We wanted to like immerse ourselves. So we find one hours away. We get out there, we hike out. It's like a mile or two hike, nothing crazy, but up a river. Yeah. And it's midnight, but it's bright out because it's like June or July. And we get to this hot spring, and these two Icelandic kids are there. After about an hour of just enjoying it, glaciers and mountains and craziness, it starts to drizzle, and we looked up, it's about to downpour, right? So we start walking back to the car, and we get to the car, and this kid goes, hey, would you mind giving me a ride? And mind you, this, imagine like Amish towns, right? They're not Amish. The Iceland people are not, obviously, Icelandic people are not Amish, but it's just such small little communities. Yeah. Spread like hours apart from each other, right? Like it's crazy. So, the closest little town with like 3 people in it is probably like an hour away. So I'm like, bro, like we are in the middle of nowhere. You don't like, how did you get here? Like, what would you do? And he says, Teitarraras, and it like rolls his R. So I'm like, what does that mean? And he basically says, hey, whatever happens, it's going to work out. Right. And it is delusional optimism again.
It is. Yeah.
But it did work out. He did have a fucking ride. I was there. You know what I mean? Yeah, it is crazy. Right. And sometimes when, I know it sounds cheesy and it's overused, but when you do put yourself out there, opportunities do like come back. Like it does reciprocate. And, maybe one day it won't work out for him, but it's better to believe it will, and just think your life is over. It just, and it was really cool. We took that with us, and I think that on everything right now. I'm like, oh, this shit's gonna work. It might not live. The house is on fire, but it's gonna work out. whatever, man.
Absolutely. So to talk about it, and yeah, we're kind of getting into this next phase of life. Talk about how
Adventure.
talk about how parachuting and base jumping became, an activity for you.
Yeah.
Because I mean, one, a lot of people have done it once, but not many people have done these
Right.
things multiple times. So talk a little bit about how you got started with it and how it continued to grow for you.
Yeah. So, I skydived when I was 18 because obviously I never drank, right?
Yeah,
So my
yeah,
dad for my 18th birthday, he's like, "Hey, you're not going to party. What can you do?"
yeah,
I said, "Well, I could skydive, right? We can go to like an
yeah,
Indian casino or a native casino, or we could skydive, like one of the two."
yeah,
Ohio, we don't have any reservations where you could, go to a casino. So he's like, "All right, I'll take you skydiving."
yeah,
So we go up 5 days after my birthday, July 10th, 2010, and I jump out of my first airplane tandem with a person.
yeah,
I went tandem like 2 more times because it was a blast.
yeah,
That led to one of the instructors saying like, "Hey, dude, you're wasting your money. It's 25 jumps to get your A license. You're not strapped to anybody, but there's people like holding you in free fall, and they kind of teach you how to fly your body, etc. You'll have your A license after 25 jumps." So I do it. So I get my A license. Fast forward 100, 200 jumps later. Some people ask like, "Hey, why is it fun to jump out of a plane? Like, is it the same thing every time?" Right? Like, yeah,
yeah,
it's fun once, but it's if I rode the same roller coaster every day, like I'd probably get bored with it. I would skydiving is nothing like a roller coaster. It's completely different. It's actually more peaceful. While it looks from the outside like thrilling, it's very peaceful.
yeah,
Um, and you don't feel like you escape death afterwards. Like even as a tandem, I was terrified.
yeah,
Ooh, I'm gonna escape death today, but it's not that.
yeah,
Afterwards, it's like, wow, that was like being like close, like an intimate interaction with life. Like that's really
yeah.
what it is, right? So imagine instead of it like a roller coaster, it's more like, why would you play golf multiple times? Why not just play once? Well, it's
Yeah.
different every time, right? Like, so
Right.
first day there's progression, there's learning, there's skill. It's not just luck of the draw. Does it work or
Right.
does it not? But you
Right.
actually learn how to fly your body, fly your parachute. There's so many things that go into skydiving, right?
Yeah.
So after 200 jumps, there's this event called Bridge Day in West Virginia. Every year, 100,000 people in West Virginia celebrate. I forget what they're celebrating, something with the state, but for some reason, it's on the highest bridge in the country, New River Gorge, or second highest. Royal Gorge in Colorado's tallest, but second highest, New River Gorge in West Virginia. They say, "Hey, we make it legal for from 8 to 3 o'clock for base jumpers to jump. You guys can jump for these hours only. We won't arrest you because base jumping in a sense is illegal." So hundreds of base jumpers show up, thousands and thousands and thousands, tens of thousands of people are on the bridge watching us as they cross through. I think 100,000 people cross over the bridge over the course of the day,
Wow.
and we jump. So it's a 900-foot bridge. It's tall. A tall object is more forgiving. You have more time, right?
Right.
It's height is usually associated with danger, but that's kind of like the opposite. That's the wrong
Right.
misleading stigma, right?
Yeah.
So I jump off this bridge for the first time, and it was you get the long free fall, 6-7 seconds. So it feels like a skydive for a second or two. You pull, you land on the side. I land in the water, to make it safe.
Yeah.
And it was amazing. And that led to my buddy calling me a few months later, like, "Hey, you want to do a cell phone tower?" And that's
Yeah.
only 300 feet, right? 350 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. And that led to, okay, hey, do you want to start, sneaking into roofs of buildings? And do you want to start, going on hikes at certain, places out west and jumping off these cliffs and, progress into a very dangerous, right? Very dangerous, but very beautiful sport that I love a lot. And yeah, I can talk about that all day.
Absolutely. So one of the yeah, well, so to that, so to know tomorrow, to kind of promote the business, you guys are in a hot air balloon and you're going up and you think, oh, well, this would be a neat thing to jump out of. But unfortunately, the recording doesn't go right the first time, so we have to
Yeah,
do
oh,
it
you watched
a
this video.
second
Yeah,
time. So
cool.
talk a little bit about the I guess
Yeah,
the
how that
story
went down. Yeah,
behind it,
so
yeah, how it all came to be.
well, basically, so how a couple days before that is when the no tomorrow kind of thing kind of like came into fruition for me. So obviously, we've probably heard something like, "Hey, live like there's no tomorrow." We've heard that
Yeah.
before. I was on the phone with my dad, and my dad is super successful business guy. owns a bunch of businesses, is a customer service consultant, motivational speaker, has like 4 or 5 best-selling books, right? He's this end of the spectrum, right? Like he's just very make your money, work hard, which is great. Yeah. My mom was a lot more over here. She was the creative. She was a hairstylist. She worked on Fashion Week. She worked with different movie stars doing their hair, this and that. So she's more the creative side. So together, when they opened the salons, it was very like creative and business, boom, together, right? I definitely pick from my mom's side more, right? I definitely do. So my dad sees me running around the planet with no money for years, right? Like I'm in Thailand, I'm in the Philippines, I'm in Palau, I'm all over the planet. And he knows I have, less than $1,000 in my bank account doing all these things. Yeah. And in his eyes, he thinks, if I only have, $500, $1,000, why would I book a flight? Right? Like I need to double down, make my money, and in my eyes, I'm like, if I could be broke in America or broke in Thailand, I'm going to be broke in Thailand. You know what I mean? So that's how I always thought, right? Yeah. So he called me one day and he goes, you live life on spring break all the time, permanent spring break. Like you only care about today. You don't care about tomorrow. And he's kind of like, he's giving me the dad speech, which he's right. He's correct. But he's saying like, let's fucking go, get after it, right? Yeah. Boom, click, right? I go, whoa, I really like that. And I call my friend Jake, and I go, my friend Jake Ryan, actually my coach's son, sorry. He's my coach's son from Ohio State. And I call him up and I'm like, hey, you know how we've been looking for like a hashtag or something fun that we can just market for ourselves? What do you think about like live no tomorrow? Like, hey, do cool stuff right now. Like tomorrow's not promised. Be super present, just stuff like that. And he was like, wow, I love that. That's awesome. Why don't we transition that, not just a hashtag, maybe throw it on some shirts and da-da-da. So I said, oh yeah, great. So it wasn't really like a brand thought at first. Yeah. It was more of just like, hey, this is a way that I'd like to live life, right? Yeah. So then the next day, we're driving to this hot air balloon. And I had this idea to like hang from the hot air balloon from my buddy's arm and he would drop me. Now, everybody has seen like viral hot air balloon videos, but we do them all the time where it's almost going to be oversaturated. So I was like, okay, how can I take this and be like a little bit different, right? Yeah. One, I want to have fun jumping out of air balloons. It's not all about the video, but if I can make a cool video, I might as well try. So I'm in my friend's arm. I get like sat down and we like drop too fast and he drops me out of the hot air balloon. Obviously I have a parachute on, I'm skydiving, it's fine, but I didn't get the cool like drama of the video. Right. Boom, fall, open up, I'm pissed, right? So I go up to the balloon pilot when he lands and I say, hey, is there any chance you're still jumping like later on today? And he goes, oh, I don't think so. I have a sunset low with a bunch of non-jumpers, but I don't think there's room. I'll let you know in like an hour or two. Yeah. And I'm 5 hours away from where I have to go. So I'm thinking, should I leave? I don't know, this and that. And also I needed my rig repacked and I packed my base rig, but I hate packing my sky rig. So I'm like, oh, fuck, I'm going to have to pack my sky rig. I don't really want to do this. And I'm almost like at the point of just leaving, right? Yeah. So I Google, like, is there a close drop zone around us? I'm in the middle of PA. I've never jumped in PA before. And there was one like 20 minutes away. I'm like, okay, let's go over there and just see if somebody can like throw our rigs together real quick. We drive over there and they're closed. It's November, but there's one person checking on the maintenance there. He's like, yeah, I'll pack stuff up real fast. Just worked out, right? Then I get a call from the pilot and he says, hey, there's room on this load if you want to come. So we go and we get this great video of me hanging from his arm and it's, oh, no, don't fall, don't fall. It looks funny. And I fall and then it gets blown up. It's like Sports Center, Barstool, World Star, just everybody posting it. Yeah. And it like sparked like, oh, you know what? We can get a lot of attention on this brand, if we just showcase our lifestyle, right? Yeah. I don't sacrifice my enjoyment of the lifestyle for videos. Yeah. But at the same time, like I do like storytelling. I do like, showing the world cool stuff. It's fun. Yeah. So, absolutely. I love it. Yeah. And so you've had a bunch of, videos get tons of traction. And at some point, a connection with the Paul brothers comes to be. Yeah. And you've partnered with them. The connection happened from wrestling. Okay. All right. Well, let's hear. You give a little rundown. And you've partnered with them on some videos. Jake Jake was a high school wrestler when I was at Ohio State. He was like 15, 14 years old and came to Ohio State wrestling camp, right? Fortunately, I was a pretty household name in the wrestling community at the time. I was working the camp. I was teaching wrestling moves to a bunch of the kids. And this little, fucking kid was hilarious. He was like, dude, can you take me out? And I'm like, yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah, I'll take you out. Like, so I'm fucking bringing him to all these like college parties, like a high school kid. And I'm just like, just showing him the funnest week of his like little camper, life. And, boom, he blows up on Vine, which snowballs into obviously YouTube, and YouTube snowballs into, who he is now. And we just stayed in touch. We stayed close. And, that's one of my really good friends now. He's one of my best friends. I see him, a couple times a month, when I go down to Puerto Rico, or, we meet, and we just went to Hawaii together. We've been, all over there. We get this house in Miami sometimes together. And that obviously, because he's brothers with Logan, led to me doing some prime stuff with Logan, just because of the good aesthetic of base jumping and whatnot. And I'm actually a sponsored athlete for my parachute of Jake's company, Better.
Yeah.
So yeah, technically better athlete, right? I got better on my parachute, jump off cliffs, jump off buildings, and bet better, right?
Absolutely. Well, Johnny, I know after this you got to hit a flight. So talk a little bit about what you're going to go fly and do in Mexico, my man.
All right. So first of all, I love it. Like, I'm so sorry I do this, but you asked a question. I like have to like wrap it into my brain, talk over here, and then circle back. I don't know why I do that.
It's all good.
That's just how I process it. But so no tomorrow, right? To answer your question about Mexico, no tomorrow doesn't mean go do death-defying things. It's not like, hey, go jump off a building. That's the only way to live in the moment, like, is to risk your life. That's not what I want it to mean. Yeah. It could be yoga. It could be going for a run. It could be working out. It could be art. It could be doing podcasts, talking to people, losing track of time. It's whatever makes you feel super present and kind of sets your soul on fire a little bit of, hey, I feel alive right now. Like, whatever that is. And for some people, it is just yoga. That's not risking my life, but I feel so alive when I do it, right? So for me, I want people to know it's not just parachute activities. So for me, right, although that is the main thing I do, base jumping and whatnot, that's not the only way I feel super alive. A big part of why I feel alive is that right there, right? Those sharks, not just sharks, but just ocean life, wildlife in general. Kind of diving in with wildlife is, I'm gonna go back to that one phrase. It's such an intimate experience with life and with the human experience. It's so amazing because there's all this chaos, and then boom, you're underwater and it's quiet, and there's just this thing. Maybe it's a whale, maybe it's a dolphin, maybe it's a shark. It's just this thing that's living in a world that you know nothing about, and it's so amazing. It's literally amazing. Long story short, orcas are migrating through Cabo around this time of year. So we're flying down, me and my girlfriend were flying down and hoping to see some orcas underwater. I want to have responsible encounters. I don't want to, be harassing them or jumping on top of them. But if I'm in the water and one swims by me, I can't help that. That's their space, right?
That's right.
Right. So hopefully you're gonna see some cool wildlife this week. Jump on some dolphins, jump on some orcas. See some cool stuff.
I love it, brother. Well, Johnny, any other things you want to make sure to highlight?
I got a question for you.
Yeah.
Would you ever skydive?
I have never skydived, and I literally just told Julia, because she asked me, she's like, what's one thing you want to do? And this was probably like a week or two ago. I was like, I want to go skydiving. She's like, you got to do it. And I was like, I know, I got to do it. So
that's something, if I'm ever, you're in Nebraska, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. If I'm ever passing through, I got a camp in Council Bluffs in July. So if we got some time, we'll get up in the plane.
Let me know, or anywhere I need to go. I take a trip every month. That's my non-negotiable of living in Omaha. Is like, I got to get the heck out of here. So.
I like that. Omaha's a fun city, though. Obviously, College World Series in Omaha. That's
Yep, coming up.
So for you, what's your no tomorrow? What makes you feel, hey, when I'm doing this, I don't check my phone, I forget time. Like, I feel so alive when I do this. Like, it's so fun for me.
Man. So my purpose is helping people. So, I run a financial planning practice. I own a rental real estate company. Like, those are the things that, like, I get my most purpose out of.
Cool.
But
That's
like,
big. I mean, you're giving, you're
yeah.
giving those lies. That's got to be very,
Yeah.
fulfilling for
Yeah,
sure.
but I would say for me, it's being intentional with my relationships. Like,
Wow, that's a great.
my friends are just like so important. And so I tell them all the time, it's like, I have a very hectic life. So I don't always have, 5 hours to give you. But when I'm there, like, I'm
You're
not
there.
texting, I'm not taking phone calls. I don't even keep my work email on my cell phone because I
Oh, that's cool,
know I
man.
would check it. So for me, like the thing that makes me feel most alive is just like being around like my core
Who you care
people
about.
that make me better. And so yeah, I mean, I just
Good for you.
booked
That's
a
a really good answer. Being intentional in your relationships. That's something that, because I ask a lot of people that question. I don't think I
yeah.
ever got one like as genuine as that. Like usually it's I don't want to say selfish answers, but
Yeah.
it's things that do things for us
Mm,
as opposed to like a relationship, So
yeah.
that's really cool, really unique. So cool.
Yeah, man. Well, I appreciate it. Well, Johnny, you're a legend. Thanks so much for hopping on and sharing your story. And you just got promised me we can do this again in like 3 or 4 years and highlight all the new stories on the
Dude, we
next
can do it
things
in
that
three or
you
four
have going on.
months. We can do it in a few months. I appreciate you having me on. Thank you so much.